Your owner's manual says 0W20. The exact same engine in Australia? 5W30 or even 10W30? Are US engines different, or are we chasing a number on a government test? You're in the right place. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. In this video, I'll show you how EPA fuel economy testing and certification lock US cars to thinner oils, why other markets prioritize heat protection and durability, and what that means for your engine past 60,000 miles, especially in hot states. Stay with me to see how a 0.7 miles per gallon lab gain can quietly shape the oil protecting your engine for 100,000 miles. Let's pull up two pages that shouldn't disagree but do. Same engine code, same 2.5-liter four-cylinder. The US owner's manual locks you to 0W20 full synthetic period. The overseas manual for that engine shows a chart with 5W30 and even 10W30 as normal picks. Neither page mentions different pistons, bearings, or cooling tricks. The hardware matches, yet the viscosity line changes like a different language. That's where the confusion starts. You might ask, if the clearances and metallurgy don't change, why does the oil grade shift the minute a VIN lands in a different country? Is there a US-only cam profile or a secret pump? Owners ask dealers. Dealers point back to the book, and the circle goes nowhere. The awkward truth is the engine didn't switch personalities. The priorities did. I got a message from a viewer with a US spec crossover who swears by the maintenance schedule. His friend in Australia has the same engine code, similar mileage, similar trips, lots of highway and summer heat. They both pop open their manuals on a video call. One sees 0W20 and nothing else. The other sees 5W30 as the default recommendation. Same dipstick, different ink on paper. They weren't arguing about science. They were staring at two sets of marching orders. Let's decode the numbers without jargon. In 0W20, the 0W is the cold flow rating. Lower means the oil moves faster when the engine is cold, so the pump can fill the galleries quickly on startup. The 20 is the hot rating. That's the thickness the oil targets at operating temperature, and it relates to the strength of the oil film when metal surfaces slide under load. Step to 5W30, and you get a bit more resistance on cold starts than a 0W. But a thicker film when the engine is hot, which helps bearings, cam lobes, and ring packs when you hold speed on a warm day or climb a grade. Think of it like gloves. Thin gloves let your hands move freely and reduce drag, which feels great for small, quick tasks. Thicker gloves add a cushion when you start hauling and things heat up. In engines, that cushion is film strength. It's the difference between a slick barrier that carries load and a film that thins until it can't keep parts separated under stress. Here's where lab data nudges the story. Many 0W20 blends, especially under extended heat, tend to shear down. Over a service interval, they can drop viscosity and drift toward the edge of the grade. Quality 5W30S, built with stronger base stocks and more conservative polymer packages, tend to hold their hot viscosity longer when you run high load and high temperature. That means the oil film keeps its thickness better when you're cruising at 75 in summer or pulling a small trailer up a long hill. You don't see it on a dashboard, but you do see it when you sample used oil and track wear metals and varnish over time. If the engine hasn't changed, what has? The scoring system. The US manual's narrow pick aligns with how cars are measured in a government lab. Thin oil trims parasitic losses, so the dyno reports a better number. Other regions weigh heat and durability more heavily, so the same engine ends up with thicker recommendations. That's why the mismatch lives in the manual, not in the block. So the takeaway for this split is simple. The hardware stays mostly constant. The label moves with the target. The US chases test cycle efficiency. Markets like Japan and Australia lean toward thermal protection. Now let's expose the test that quietly nudges US cars towards 0W20, and what that choice looks like after your odometer rolls past 60,000 miles. What if the 0.7 miles per gallon bump in a lab is why your car has been drinking 0W20 for the last 100,000 miles? That tiny gain shows up where automakers live and breathe. EPA test cycles and CAFE math. The EPA runs standardized drive schedules on a dyno. Then those results roll into CAFE, the corporate average fuel economy rules that set a target for the entire fleet. Miss the target and the fines stack up fast. So engineers shave parasitic losses anywhere they can, and oil viscosity is low-hanging fruit. Drop from 5W30 to 0W20, and the engine spends less energy pushing oil through pumps, bearings, and galleries. On paper, that can be worth around 0.7 miles per gallon. Multiply that across 1 million units, and you start to see why the manual lists the thinnest option. That's life in the lab, but let's put the car in Phoenix in August. You're crawling in traffic, AC on high, and the oil temp creeps toward 240 degrees Fahrenheit. Thinner oil still flows easily, but heat and load push it toward the bottom edge of its grade. Independent testing has shown many 0W20s lose roughly 10 to 15% viscosity by 5,000 to 7,000 miles when they live in heat like that. A 5W30, built with a more conservative polymer blend, tends to hold its hot viscosity longer, keeping a more stable film over bearings and rings. That stability is the difference between a quiet, clean top end and one that starts to show varnish and elevated wear over time. Let's ground this with numbers. In a 100,000-mile comparison run in hot southern conditions, the 0W20 car posted about a 0.7 miles per gallon edge. The flip side showed up in the samples. The 5W30 engine saw roughly 40% lower wear metals, and the valve cover stayed notably cleaner, while the 0W20 engine built light varnish. You won't feel that on the throttle pedal, but you will read it in long-term lab reports, and you might hear it later in lifter tick or timing chain noise. Now add a turbo. Small 1.5-liter turbo engines work their oil hard, especially in heat. Extended tests in hot climates linked 0W20 to higher oil consumption and more turbo-bearing wear. A straightforward change to 5W30 cut consumption by around 30% and nearly halved detected wear metals. Turbo bearings live at extreme shaft speeds and temperatures. They want a film that doesn't collapse when the housing glows. Plenty of owners worry about the warranty, so let's clear that up. The Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act says a manufacturer can't deny coverage unless they prove your choice caused the failure. Use a full synthetic 5W30 that meets AP-ISP or ILS-AC-GF6, and you're within the spec umbrella many manuals acknowledge with lines like 5W30 may be used if 0W20 is unavailable. That phrasing exists to keep the EPA paperwork intact while giving you a practical out for real conditions or aging engines. Viscosity isn't the whole story anyway. Chemistry decides how an oil survives heat and carries load. Detergents keep deposits in check. ZDDP and other anti-wear agents protect lifters, cams, and timing sets. Base stocks matter too. Group 3 synthetics can perform well, but PAO and ester-heavy blends tend to hold viscosity and resist oxidation better under sustained heat. Two bottles with the same numbers on the front can behave very differently after 6,000 hard miles. So how do you use this? Think about climate and mileage. Short, cold trips favor fast flow. Long, hot commutes, towing, or engines past 60,000 to 80,000 miles often respond better to a premium full synthetic 5W30, with only a tiny hit to MPG and a clear gain in stability and cleanliness. You now see why the label leans 0W20 and when stepping up pays off. Next, I'll give you one rule that makes the choice easy at your next oil change. Here's the bottom line you can actually use. The number in your US manual reflects a test target as much as engine protection. Choose oil based on climate, driving load, and mileage, not just the line on page 3. Pull your manual, find the alternates, and make sure the bottle shows AP-ISP or ILS-AC-GF6. Short, cold trips? 0W20 flows fast and works well. Long, hot drives, towing, or 60,000 plus miles. A premium full synthetic 5W30 often protects better with almost no MPG hit. If this engine were sold in Europe, what would the manual list? And what does that suggest for your next oil change?